Hi, my name is Neenah Fuste. I'm 17 years old. I'm an aspiring opera singer and I stutter. Over the past few years, I've discovered two important life lessons. First, there are just way too many people in the world who don't really understand what stuttering is, and that there are even more people who do understand what stuttering is, but they choose to make ableist choices. They choose to believe that fluency is superior. They, for some reason, believe that they are more intelligent, and of course, neither are true. People who stutter don't lack intelligence. We have just as much to say and deserve to be heard. I remember one time I was talking with a group of friends, and as I was introducing myself to a new girl, I had a blockage. And she said, "What? Did you forget your name? What are you, stupid?" It was in that moment when I found myself feeling bad for this girl. I felt embarrassed for her. I mean, can you imagine saying that to someone? The second thing I learned is the incredible opportunity artists have to connect with others. We bring people together. We can close the divide. The power of art is limitless. For those of us artists who stutter, we can use our art in powerful ways to help build awareness about stuttering and help stop the stigma. Statistically, 76 million people worldwide and about 3 million people living in the United States stutter. But even with those high numbers, we still need to educate others. Many children who stutter find themselves being bullied, and even in the workplace, adults are being discriminated against. These experiences can have lasting effects on the individual's mental health. I'd like to discuss this very topic with a good friend of mine and fellow stutterer, Kristel Kubart. Kristel is a speech language pathologist working with the American Institute of Stuttering. Hi, Crystal. I'm so happy that you're here to meet with me.
Oh, me too.
I just love to ask you a few questions about you and your career and your experience as a person who stutters.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. So first, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your job as a speech and language pathologist?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a passionate speech language pathologist who stutters. What I'm most passionate about is we're working with people who stutter. But I also have a job in a school as a speech therapist. And you want me to talk about myself in general? So I do want to talk about my own journey a little bit because it has informed my practice as a speech therapist tremendously. When I was growing up, I was super ashamed of my stuttering. And so it was very tense. And I had a lot of avoidances, and I would kind of just not talk most of the time. And when I was in my early 20s, I found a very helpful speech therapist who told me, hey, maybe it's okay to stutter. And I had never heard that before. And that message completely changed my life and helped me work on changing how I thought about my stuttering and also changing how I stutter. Um, and yeah, I'm really, really happy with my career.
Awesome. That's so awesome to hear. Um, Having worked with so many children who stutter, what have you found are the most common mental health effects of them being discriminated against because of their stutter?
So, oh goodness. I feel that because stuttering is such a stigmatized thing in our world, and misunderstood, really, kids will pick up on that. And it doesn't even have to be direct extreme bullying, but any kind of messaging that maybe being fluent is better than stuttering. They're like they're picking up on all that, and they are noticing how people react to their stuttering. So if someone laughs or fills in their word, it just feels like, oh, this isn't good. They don't want me to be stuttering. And so I think one of the worst things that happens is that kids feel like they have to hide this part of themselves. Um, that's certainly what happened to me, and it happens a lot. It's just a part of the stuttering experience if the person is not given the messaging that they like, this is okay. This is just a part of the way that some people talk, and that you can stutter with confidence and teach the world that this is a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think like hiding is maybe the worst, but also just feeling bad about yourself and feeling like there's something wrong with you. Like why is talking easier for other people and so hard for me? So learning not to feel ashamed.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can totally relate to that. Like as a child, like I always thought that well, I think as a child I didn't really know what like having a stutter was, and I don't think that my parents really knew either. So I think that like having that feeling of like, oh, I'm not able to speak as well as all of my classmates, and having that feeling of being like not like as smart, but like as like fluent made
Hmm.
me shyer
Yes, me too.
as a child. So I feel
Mhm.
like that's something that is almost seen in like everybody that I've ever met who stutters. Like they
Yeah,
have,
it's a journey for sure.
yeah.
And then how your true personality comes out, and
Yes.
you like your authentic self when you hear this messaging and work on feeling like it's okay to stutter. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Moving on to like your more older clients, have you seen your adult clients experience workplace discrimination because of people's stutters? Like, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I think it does happen. It's not always like clear exactly what's happening and what other people are thinking. But I do think that people may not get hired because there's so many misconceptions about stuttering. There are myths that people who stutter are not as smart, which is not true at all. We're just as smart as like anybody else. And but it's a stereotype, and I think employers might be afraid that people who stutter can't be good communicators, and that's not true either. Um, and unfortunately, the weight of that kind of falls on the person who stutters a lot, and so something we work on in speech therapy is how to talk about your stuttering at the workplace or on an interview, and to assure people that you can do the job and stutter. And that's a lot. It's a lot for people who may not have that confidence. So I think both changing the way we feel ourselves, but changing society as well to make them more understanding of stuttering, and that people who stutter are awesome people to have on your in your employment, I guess, because we are passionate and hardworking and all the things. So yeah.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Yes, so before I started all of the interviewing processes for the documentary, I spent about maybe a month doing extensive research into like ableism for stuttering and like the myths that would fall into like the medical myths or like the social and pop culture myths,
Yeah.
and also just like this like the negatively portrayed way that stuttering is shown in like movies, TV shows, all sorts of public media. And I found a few studies that were specifically for like oh, like as a person who stutters, like how many times have you been like discriminated against like trying to get a job? And it was really shocking and really sad because it was like 73% of stuttering participants for the study had said that they feel like that their stutter is something that would get in the way of them having opportunities at their workplace or having other promotions or being able to even like have a job in general.
Definitely. I felt that very strongly. I make career choices like majors in college choices, all based around my stuttering and fear that I couldn't do jobs. So yeah, it's a big thing. You did such good research, Neenah.
So much.
It is a very sad statistic. So that number is high. What was it, 76%?
I think so. And also there was like a percentile of people, I think about like 23% of like um owners who would prefer not to hire a person who stutters
Hmm.
because of the fear that like they would not be able to do their job correctly and that
Yeah,
they are not like qualified because of the disability that they have. Even though, like, if they were educated, they would know that, like, having a stutter is not something that needs to be in the way of anybody having any opportunities.
I agree, Neenah. Yeah. That's why things like this are so important. I hope that more people see what you're creating here. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that number that, the 23% of employers who were very honest about their feelings, you don't know, people are not always honest or even aware of how ableism is impacting their choices. Um, so yeah, the more things that we could do to change the way stuttering is viewed, or people with disabilities in general, um, the better.
Yeah, while I was taking the time to research for the last month, I not only noticed a lot of ableism happening like online and like to other people, but I started to like realize all of the ableism that is happening in my life and like all around me, like, oh my goodness, it like happens at least like maybe 8 times a week where a person who is uneducated, obviously, who would either like, I guess, like make fun of how I spoke or maybe like obviously uneducated said like a weird remark to me about like my stuttering sounds. And
Hmm.
it was really just a turning point for me when I realized how important it is to do this and how important it is to share this information with as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's true. It's constant. All the little microaggressions, they call them. And so
Yes.
thank you for sharing that, and thank you for putting that into this video, because I think it's really important for people to hear, that it is all around us all the time, and how strong you need to be to really, um, continue to in your heart know that it's okay to stutter, given the fact that we're given so many of these negative messages. So yeah.
Mhm. Yes. So my next question is, what do you think that are the mental health effects that are showing up in those who do experience workplace discrimination?
Hmm.
If you've had any experience with anybody who's had to deal with that.
Oh goodness. So by workplace discrimination, can you like give me an example? Because there's so many different things. Because
Yeah.
there's like things that can happen, like you said, maybe not being chosen for a promotion, or not chosen to like be the leader of something. Um, and there's always like a feeling like, is this related to my stuttering? And there's also things
Yeah.
that happen if you're, I guess, almost like discriminating against yourself,
Mhm.
because of your own internalized ableism. They're not going to want me to lead this thing, or um like I won't raise my hand and like give my great idea, because I might get judged, but then someone else has the same idea and they get to say it. It's like, it's very frustrating on both ends, like the fact that people can judge your stuttering negatively, and the decisions you make based on that fear, can hold someone back at the workplace.
Mhm.
So I guess the mental health effects would be this constant, worry about how they're being viewed, if they can show stuttering or if they're going to try to conceal it. And so that's another weight that it is on a person that's very heavy if you're trying to not show your stuttering at work. I think that that has grave mental health effects that permeate someone's life. But I guess at work, maybe could be the hardest, if you're really worried about being judged, um, at the workplace. So that that's why I do what I do, because um, the more someone can embrace their stuttering and show them their true selves, the more that they can feel good all the time and at work, and like give all their great ideas at that work meeting, and just like be their best self with their stuttering, and honestly show the world that the workplace is better when there is some vulnerability. um I don't know. That's how what I've experienced in my life at my job, is that the more vulnerable I am, the more I to talk openly and say my ideas, because that was always hard for me at big meetings to speak up. Um, the happier I feel at my job, and I think the more respect I have, and the more other people feel free to be vulnerable themselves, and it just makes for a better workplace.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um, Adding on to what you said about internalized ableism,
Mm.
I feel like that, so a few, I think about like maybe like 4 weeks ago, there was the opera announcement of our spring opera.
Mhm.
And I think something specifically for me has been like, oh, like sometimes opera has like spoken text or like text that is not sang. And I think that like adding on to the thing where like I don't have to stutter when I sing, it like almost gives me like a safety blanket. Um, but I really felt so scared about this opera coming up that might have like a spoken dialogue, because like the more important of a role that you have, the more spoken stuff you'll have, right?
Sure.
So I was like, I'm not going to get chosen for anything other than like, you know, a smaller role because of my stutter. Like my teacher's just not going to think that I'm able to do it.
Mhm.
And I think that that really took such a hard toll on my mind, because it really showed me how much internalized ableism I had.
Yeah. Oh, man. I know, right? When you understand internalized ableism, it's like, "Oh, I feel this way too." Like, other people might feel this way, and I've heard the same messages, and so I don't know if I can do it either. But so what happened, Nina?
So basically I had a conversation with my opera teacher about it. I was like, look, like I don't want to be like, like discriminated against and like not be put as the role that I deserve, because of my stutter. And she was like, I can totally understand where you're coming from. Um, but we're not doing the version of the show that has any spoken text.
Oh, I am so proud of you, Nina. That is amazing that you did that. Do you realize how amazing that is?
Yeah, no, it was like really hard to
What?
say that because I didn't want to like, say like, oh, like I think that I deserve a role that like is accurately like representative of like my vocal talents, but I
Sure.
also don't want to seem like I can't
Yes.
have a role that would have a lot of spoken text.
Great. Oh, great job sticking up for yourself. That is the best story I've heard in a while. That was so great, Nina.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Oh man. And I want you to get more assistant speaking roles, because I know you spoke to Mark earlier. I think it would be so cool if you stuttered on stage. I'm sure you have like feelings about that, and that might be hard. But just, my bias is that it would be really cool.
my last question for you is having worked in speech therapy for so many years, Do you think that the world has a long way to go when it comes to the building awareness about stuttering? And what efforts do you think need to be made to stop the negative stigmatization of, stuttering?
That's a good question. The world does have a long way to go. I feel like it is a bit of an uphill battle sometimes, to get people to feel differently about disabilities in general. However, I think we're on a really good track recently. It's like kind of a cool time to be working on this type of stuff because there are so many people out there that are becoming more educated about ableism. Honestly, I didn't hear anyone to talk about the word ableism until like a few years ago. Like, and now I hear it all the time. And so I think there is like this wave of excitement about really, really educating the world in a bigger way, not just like trying to feel differently about stuttering just in ourselves or in our small community, but trying to grow and um, I what do I think needs to happen? I guess ideally it would be both big and small things. I think that if each person who stutters kind of was more open and vulnerable and talking about their stuttering in every way that they can and in all their little spaces at work, with the people that they know and love. Um, and sharing it maybe on social media, that kind of thing can have a ripple effect. But also like these bigger things, like you talked about the media and the arts and like all these awesome people that you're interviewing who are doing this great work to like uh, show people that may not even be connected to anyone who stutters that they realize, but they might see someone on TV who has a stutter and is just like a person who talks with a stutter, and it's not the like sad character. It's just part of a regular character. I think that would be really cool. um just more campaigns to educate people, I guess, in every way that there could be. I think social media has changed a lot, and it's given me a lot of hope. Like people like Mark Winsky, who are making these videos to educate people, and he has such a big following. I just know that people are randomly scrolling and then seeing that, and that has such a big impact. Um, so I don't know. I think like with anything, I trust that it's going to move forward and that I don't know exactly when it will be super normalized, but I do think that this younger generation is more cool with the d- differences, or at least that's how it feels. Like
Yeah.
it,
Mhm.
yeah, like it's cool to like be different, and you don't have to fit this mold in order to be liked or popular, or it's almost like the cool kids are the ones that are embracing their differences. And so that gives me a lot of hope for stuttering because
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. You cease to like amaze me every time I talk to you. You are
Oh, you
so
too, Neenah. You're the best.
so inspiring for like me and like my entire family too. And also I think what I also realized was that there are so many people who even like I go to Interlochen with who will like preach like oh like do not like discriminate against like racism or like the LGBTQ community, but like they completely disregard like disabilities.
Yes,
And like
that is a
don't
really good point, Neenah.
think that like it is like you like I have met so many people who like don't even know that like having a stutter is having like is like being like disabled.
Yes.
Like,
It's a thing. I feel like you said, there are other minority groups that uh people are used to thinking of when it comes to talking about diversity, and people forget about disability, even though it's such a big group of people that are discriminated against, and it really
yeah.
gets forgotten about. And so
Mhm.
I'm hopeful that like we're gonna be the next big group that people realize like, hey, these people have a voice and their life experience needs to be seen and heard and valued, in the same kind of way that the LGBTQ um like they actually have led the way in a lot of ways, and Black Lives Matter, to show that these movements can really change the way the world thinks about things, and
Yes.
so maybe disability will have our moment too. I think it's gonna happen.
Praying for it.
Okay.
Thank you
Yes,
so much for meeting with me. Thank you so much for answering all of my questions. You are
you are so welcome. I
incredible,
had so much
so
fun.
inspiring.